That blood.
Can't be too smart.
All right, everybody, we are online, we are being recorded, and so, by my watch, 4:36 on November 10th, I'm going to call the regular planning commission meeting to order. We've got a pretty light meeting today, but I also know there are a few people in the group who have, more pressing forthcoming meetings happening later on, so we're gonna try and just run right down it. First of all, we have citizens to be heard right now, just after 4:30. The only thing that we will be discussing today, or hearing a presentation on rather, it's not a discussion, is the non-motorized trails master plan currently being developed by Grand County Active Trails and Transportation. Do we have anyone here to make a public comment about issues other than the non-motorized trails master plan? If you've seen the agenda, the other presentations have been canceled, so that
I didn't
legal.
see that at all.
I apologize, it was like a last moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, those other two presentations were canceled so that the county attorney's office can perform further legal review before we hear about them.
But they will be in 2 weeks.
They will be back in 2 weeks, but they've been postponed. So the only thing on the agenda is the non-motorized master plan, but we have anything otherwise for the public to hear about, happy to take comment.
I'd like to just make one comment. And I have to say I'm concerned about the fact that I'm finding out that we have bunkhouses, which we all know about. But we now have duplexes that have 6 bedrooms on each side with 1 kitchen, no other living space, and all bedrooms. I don't know how many bathrooms there are, but what's happening is that people don't have any place to hang out in their house, so they're hanging out outside. And that's why their neighbors are getting disturbed by the noise, because it's coming from their cars. They're smoking outside and they're hanging out outside. So I would really like you guys to start considering how you're gonna make the bunkhouses work in a way that doesn't piss off their neighbors.
I understand, thank you. So in regard to high density housing projects, generally, we want to make sure that there are sufficient communal spaces, living spaces, cooking, cleaning, and what we generally call third spaces, so that folks might not necessarily be out in the public.
Right, and basically my understanding is this has a small kitchen for 6 bedrooms
I understand,
and no other.
I understand, and I think I know where that is, but I
So
will-
by the time winter comes along, it's gonna be bad.
If she doesn't mind, if she could.
Oh, yeah, and I need your name.
I'm Judy Powers.
Judy Powers, thank you.
Hi, Judy, if you wouldn't mind, sending in a zoning code enforcement request.
My understanding is it's legal, but my understanding is the person that checked it out said, and it has no living room.
Yeah, and we
And
won't know
that's
that
okay.
unless you do submit for and we can check it. If is all legal, then fine. If it's
Well,
not,
that's why I'm telling you guys, because.
but could you do a written
Where are we
coding?
sending?
You can just send it to either.
If you call the planning and zoning department, they will give you a link to a website. And that website has a form you can fill out, and that will create a paper trail essentially, and what that does. This came up several years ago, gosh, that was 2022. But I believe that's still in effect. Obviously, the county staff have changed since then, but there's what's called a Google form. And when you fill out your form and provide your information, that information will go directly to the county code enforcement officer. That should give you like verification number, so you'll be able to follow up specifically with your case and your complaint and ask where it's at.
I'm not sure that the code enforcement is the issue, but.
That's at least a way to get it onto, not just here as a public comment, but on that form, you can provide a specific parcel number, a specific address. And so it'll give it a geographic point location of where this is happening, so that code enforcement code go out, physically identify the location. But investigate is not the right word, but check it out.
Okay, so you're saying in general in the planning and zoning, they are required to have a living space, not just a kitchen?
Oh,
I'm not
I
sure.
don't
I'm
know
not-
how it's built, so.
yeah.
Okay, sorry. So I mean, is that legal, and is that something you would consider changing? That's my.
Like, again, that's what's, the difference a little bit is that oftentimes what happens inside the building, the planning and zoning, or falls under the building code department, which is a different department overseen by a different body. The planning and zoning department generally deals with the exterior and the lot shape and those types of things.
Okay.
You know, that it's just a funny way that the county government is split up into different responsibilities. But that code enforcement officer enforces both planning and zoning code and building code and the animal code and the noise ordinance.
It just depends on how it was approved, and we don't know that unless there's a request to review it.
But I'm sure either Andrew or Sean or whoever at the county, if you just call up, they can get you that information.
Okay.
Yeah, of course you do.
Yeah, we're closed tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow's better.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
On camping. so.
And I just, your name for the record.
Okay, I'm Karen Fury, and I live close to this community at Dina subdivision. I just want to make sure I get notification of when this is going to be addressed.
Yes,
I
Maybe
live
2
close
weeks.
by, I'm in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it'll be
I've
in
been
2 weeks.
doing this for years.
It'll be in 2 weeks,
so that'll be Monday, the 24th
4:30.
at 4:30. Thank you. Monday, the 24th at 4:30. And they're here for the same thing. Gotcha. That'll come up then. With no other further citizen comments to be heard, I'll turn it over to the board for ex parte communications and disclosures, any business conducted outside of our regular meeting hours. Nothing. Super, hearing none. Meeting minutes are still not there. I'm gonna encourage us to try. I know that we've got a backlog of meeting minutes, and I've kept the record of my meeting notes for the last year in my binder, but if we do our best to get the meeting minutes out with enough time to look back through, I think it's been maybe August.
Yeah.
So that's maybe 6 or 8 meetings.
And we had about half of those meetings completed, but we just wanted to re-review them.
Yeah.
And we thought it was better to just not put partial ones on, but just wait till we got so it's was halfway done
Super.
a little earlier. So.
And just a record, this is a great reason why it's good to like have your binder and take notes during meetings so that when we can go back and look, make sure that the record reflects our discussion as we remember it. We also have folks who are aware, go back and look at the recordings of these meetings on our channel. So that's the ultimate sort of record there. We'll move on to presentations. The one presentation that we have, again, for the record, Lavina and McMurdy have been postponed so that Stephen Scott's office take a look at those. But we have Grand County Active Trails and Transportation's presentation on their non-motorized trails master plan. A little bit of context and landscaping here real quick. This is a plan being adopted by, again, another department from the county, not the Planning and Zoning Department. Active Trails and Transportation adopts this plan. So I don't expect to see this plan come to us as a public hearing, but the plan may affect some change to the land use code and building code. Now, you guys were given at the start of this meeting a proposed red line of some of those changes. It is not complete or finalized as yet. It's not what we would call penultimate. But this is just a concept of how the plan that GCAT adopts may affect changes to our land use code. If those changes are determined by staff to be necessary to adopt the other department's land use code, you may see a public hearing for these changes. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Plan, not, but possible changes, maybe.
Part of this could be used for a chapter in the general plan.
Exactly. So that if it rises to a code amendment or a general plan amendment, it may circle back around to us for the second thing. Katie, are you ready? Can I turn it over
Yeah, I
to you?
am. How do I know if my mic is working?
You sound like you're working to me. There's a little speaker right above my head and
Okay.
that seems like.
Great. Tony, I think we're going to need to clarify a little bit, the process for, adoption. I was under the impression that it would make the most sense for there to be a public hearing at planning commission.
Okay.
And that was recommended, by, the attorney's office, as, as a parallel measure to the way the city is doing it. So the city is having a public hearing at planning commission, and then they're not having a public hearing at city council. In conversation with Chrissy and also, with ComAdmin, the sort of plan that we've put together, which, we'll show you guys at the end of this, we can discuss, is that we would have a public hearing at both planning commission and county commission, with the idea that this would be adopted by the county as an amendment to the general plan.
Okay.
Which, requires public hearing at county commission as well.
So I'm sorry, I jumped the gun there.
Yeah, we can certainly discuss.
That's,
That's our
I
plan.
I'll defer to whatever, the legal office and county staff recommend on that. Just have Maddie Lagowitz link up with Sean, so that we can make sure we get it at the end at the right time.
Yeah, we can't have discussion on something that already has a public hearing
Intended.
intended, which is what we're doing with those last two items. And so this would just be like kind of a general, here we are discussion, but like a formal public hearing discussion. Later.
We're here to hear from Katie, but not necessarily to deliberate or ask her too many deep questions.
Exactly.
That we'll get an opportunity to that.
That makes sense. That said, and let me know if this is a sort of breach of protocol, but I was hoping for feedback. Because we have the rest of this week before we have to post our final plan for the city planning commission's public hearing. So there is sort of a few more days when we could make some changes to the plan. So if you all have changes that you would like to see and that's appropriate to discuss at this time, then I definitely take that.
Okay,
And
what
I'm
would be
not
your,
sure, I don't think that can happen.
yeah, I was gonna ask,
Public
what would be
hearing
your
process.
deadline for public body comments? Because they probably do need to come through a public hearing process. If we're doing it as a general plan amendment, then the comments would have to come through a public hearing. Versus if we weren't doing the general plan amendment, then the discussion would be allowed to be more free, but they wouldn't be ratified recommendations by the board. They would just be feedback to your discussion. So just kind of like,
Otherwise, we
Extra
would have to play today's video before the public hearing could start, just so people were brought up to speed as to what discussions were happening before the public hearing.
that would count kind of like an expert.
Essentially, I just want to ensure that planning commission has the ability to weigh in at some point. And so I guess what would happen then is if we don't discuss today, then any feedback or changes that this body would like to see at the time of the public hearing would have to be added sort of as a red line that makes sense.
And I just have a question. Individually, people could make, not comments now, but could send them in after
As a
having read
citizen.
it, if people have some.
And it's important when you send that comment to contextualize it in your role as a citizen comment and not a.
Yes, exactly.
And if that's the case, the deadline for that would be Thursday, but as soon as possible, please.
Understood.
All right. Okay, the non-motorized trail master plan. So a bit of background on the master plan. I sent out some bullet points to you all over email, but I'll summarize that all again. So the non-motorized trail master plan was originally written in 2005. It was written by Trail Mix, which at that time, and still is, a volunteer body. So this was written by volunteers, which is important to note. And since then it's been updated in 2011. There was originally an intent that you can see when you read through the 2005 plan, for the plan to be updated every 5 years. So it's pretty out of date. So the time has come to update it. The original plan mostly focused on recreational and soft surface trails, with some recommendations related to what we're now calling active transportation. So essentially there were a lot of mountain bike and hiking trails and stuff about trail running and skiing and stuff, and not a lot of recommendations about getting to the grocery store on your bike, or being able to get from home to work. Second relevant plan that built a little bit more on that was the Unified Transportation Master Plan. which was approved in 2020. That was a joint master plan between the city and the county. So that was a overall transportation master plan. So it was talking about roads and cars and transit as well as active transportation. But there were a lot of recommendations related to biking and walking paths, related to crosswalks, sidewalks, that kind of thing. But they were more piecemeal. It was a set of recommendations that was based on a safety analysis, like where are the most dangerous intersections in town, that sort of thing. But it wasn't so much looking at the county holistically and thinking about how do we create a network to make sure that everybody in the county can get to every single important destination that they need to get to along a sort of continuous network that has a continuous standard to it of safety and comfort. And also that it's sort of signed so that people know they're on the network when they're on the network. So that was one of our main goals with this plan update, is to sort of bring together the Unified Transportation Master Plan and the Non-Motorized Trails Master Plan, all the sort of good parts of those that we want to move forward, and then add on to those and sort of weave the recreation and the active transportation elements together a little bit better. So this plan was paid for by a UDOT TPA grant, that's technical planning assistance. I applied for that back in 2023, and it's $120,000 total. The city provided the matching funds, so it truly is a city-county project. And I'll get to the technical advisory committee in a second, but it's split between the city and the county. And the funding was used to hire the consultant. We selected Alta Planning and Design. They're a active transportation focused consulting firm, so they have a lot of experience. And the staff coordinator, me. The scope of work is, it's an update to the non-motorized trail master plan. So we're gonna do a lot of updates and thinking about the existing soft surface or recreational trail network. Is it serving the needs that exist currently in the county? What would people like to see that's not happening right now in terms of recreational trails? But then also to think about developing the active transportation network. So the way we're defining active transportation is walking, biking, and rolling. So that's, mostly a lot of pedestrians, a lot of bikes, but then that rolling is kind of a catch-all: skateboards, rollerblades, mobility devices, and including e-bikes and e-mobility devices, as long as they're going less than 20 miles per hour, which is what we settled on as an easier thing to enforce than, like what type of e-bike it is. And then this is getting cut off a little bit, but at the very bottom it says interface with land use planning. So that was a really important part of the technical planning assistance grant, is that you need to bring together active transportation and land use. So a big part of that is thinking about where are we expecting future development? How do we make sure that gets connected into the active transportation network? If we're going to see more high density areas, for example, in the recommended centers from the future land use plan, how do we make sure that those are connected? So that, all those people can get into town by active means. So this is the technical advisory committee. I'm not going to read everybody, but essentially we have representation from the county, the city, Trail Mix, and UDOT. And within the county and the city, we did our best to try to get a good mix of elected officials, people from planning and zoning departments, roads department, engineers, anyone who might be able to give us sort of necessary technical feedback on the stuff that we're recommending. And all of these folks have been consulted about the plan, have had ample chance to give us feedback. So this is what we've done so far. We posted our RFP back in January, was up for a month. We went through a process. We had a selection committee that was members of county staff, and we selected Alta Planning and Design. In April, we had our kickoff. So Alta came down in person, and we had a kickoff with the technical advisory committee. And we did a bike walk audit with everybody from the TAC that wanted to be part of it. So we rode our bikes all around town or all around the county and went to a sort of predetermined route of a lot of places where we wanted to show off kind of the best and the worst of active transportation in the county. We showed them the Mill Creek Parkway as kind of a crown jewel, but we also showed them the parts of the parkway that have been washed out. We showed them the Skunk Alley Bridge, which provides access or lack thereof to the Mountain View neighborhood. It's in terrible shape, and it's kind of the only way to get to the Mountain View neighborhood by bicycle or walking without going all the way around up Cane Creek Boulevard. And, you know, a bunch of other places in the city and county. And those are all listed in the master plan. So then in May, basically over the summer, we started our public engagement process. We had stakeholder meetings. We had a really awesome stakeholder meeting with, we called vulnerable street users. So, representatives of, people who work with groups who might have particular needs from our streets. So we, met with, folks who work with seniors, people who work with kids, after school programs, people who work with users who have English as a second language, homeless folks, basically a lot of different people that we envisioned might be spending more time on the street or might have particular needs. So that was really great. We talked through, you know, what are the most dangerous intersections? What are the places where people are having trouble? And what sort of things do we need on our streets? We also had a stakeholder meeting with businesses. We talked through what is the sidewalk outside your business like? How are people getting there? Does everybody drive or do people walk and bike? What sort of infrastructure is there already and what would you like to see? How might you imagine that, you know, a better sidewalk or better connectivity might improve your business? And then we also had some stakeholder meetings with representatives of particular recreational user groups. And we actually focused on user groups that were less represented in the original master plan. So, you know, we met with climbers and equestrians and to hear about what their concerns were, what they'd like to see. We also had public visioning meetings, which were a little bit more broad and larger. So we had a lot of people at those and we had maps up on the wall where people could draw what are the most important destinations around the county? How do they currently get there? What are places that feel really dangerous? And in some of those were focused on active transportation and some of them were focused on recreation. So we also had people recommending like long distance bike packing routes into the Book Cliffs. And, you know, all manner of things like that. We also did a survey over the summer and we had 439 responses. So there were a lot of multiple choice questions where people could explain, you know, how much they were using active transportation, what their major barriers were, what opportunities they see. And then there was, they could also answer those questions related to recreation. And there was a comment map that was sort of a online version of the same thing we were doing at the public visioning meetings, where people could go on, this is a screenshot from it right here. And they could input, you know, little dots for their most important destinations or places that felt dangerous or, you know, recommended new trails. And then people could comment on each other's recommendations and sort of vote them up or down, which I thought it was an awesome tool. We learned a lot from it and a lot of our recommendations were actually based on that. So then toward the end of the summer, early fall, we had a midterm open house. And around that time, we also started reaching out to landowners who had been previously affected by the 2011 master plan. So that's folks who had a trail that was drawn adjacent to or across their property in the 2011 plan that, you know, may or may not actually have known about that. So unfortunately, there wasn't a huge amount of outreach before the 2011 master plan. So we're really trying to rectify that this time. And we've been in close communication with a lot of these landowners. So we sent out 120 postcards in the mail. We invited folks to come to the open house. We let them know that we could schedule in-person meetings and phone calls with anyone who wanted to talk and ask questions about, you know, what this meant that their property was included in the plan. I had 15, that is actually out of date at this point, it's 18, sort of kind of continuous follow-up conversations with landowners. So that was, you know, people emailed me or they called me, and in some situations we set up a time to talk and they came in. And at, you know, at other points, it was just a phone call. And I have been following up with everyone to let them know, the sort of updated version of how their property is being shown on the map. In some situations, some trails are no longer in the updated master plan. So letting them know that's the case. Or in some situations, we've changed the way that the trail is represented. We've changed the symbology. So just kind of like letting them know where that stands and letting them know about the future public comment periods. Which is one of the reasons I really want to get the schedule for public hearing down so that I can let people know that they have the opportunity to come talk to us about their thoughts. So then finally in October, It's like this is getting cut off. But anyway, we're at the sort of October, November part. We're finishing up. In October, we had a 90% finished draft, which is essentially what I sent to you all. And there's still a few things that have to be added to it, but we're almost done. And then in November, and to the beginning of December, we're gonna be going into our approval process. So this is the plan outline. So anything in blue is yet to be added, so it means you haven't seen it. So we have a vision framework at the beginning, we're sort of talking through our mission and vision, guiding principles, and all of that is just sort of like, these are the ways that we're making decisions about what was included and what wasn't included in the plan. So, why this trail and not that trail, why was this trail removed? All of that should be reflecting the mission and vision, which was developed based on stakeholder input and the survey. We'll have, some definitions so people can kind of understand what we're talking about, soft surface versus paved, what are the different typologies of road adjacent or road separated infrastructure that we're recommending. And a little bit of sort of like background about the trail system. And then what's really important, and I think I mentioned in my email that this is one of the things I'd like, feedback on eventually, is goals and strategies. So we have, I think, 8 sort of major goals that came out of our survey. So these were the things that people commented on the most. And we did our best to sort of collate those and translate them into where we'd like to be focusing with our recommendations. There's an existing condition section. This is pretty common in this sort of plan. So basically it's a review of where we're at. So what were the relevant previous plans? So it talks about the non-motorized trail master plan from 2005 and 2011. It also talks about the unified transportation master plan and a lot of other master plans that are sort of tangentially related. There's gonna be maps of the existing trail network. So we currently have maps of the active transportation network in there. We and GCAT are still working on our recreation soft surface trails, but we'll be done with those in the next couple of days, fingers crossed. And you all will have those sent out to you. Then some trail use data on recreational soft surface trails. We have some trail counters from the BLM and the Forest Service kind of telling us about which trails get the most use and, is it pedestrians or bikers or, what do we know about how use is happening? And it's pretty interesting. You can see in there's a couple graphs that show changes in use over years. So you can see which trails are starting to get more use over time, which, years there was a peak or a dip. And then a lot of information that Alta used in their analysis. They have a sort of safety and crash analysis where they look through all of the major crashes that happened in town and county, which ones were fatal, who was involved, what type of intersection was it at, that sort of thing. And also an opportunities analysis that they made, sort of bringing together the existing conditions and future plans and kind of trying to see which of the plans that have already been created still have recommendations that really should be applied. Then there's a description of our public engagement process. Unfortunately it's cut off, but basically everything I just described is described again in the plan in more detail with like sort of more detailed analysis of the survey. And then we get into the network proposals, which is another section that I definitely think everyone should be focusing on. This is sort of where the rubber meets the road with the plan. And these are the recommendations that are gonna end up getting implemented into our active transportation network. So there's a description of the sorts of typologies or facility types that Alta is recommending. So is it a shared use path, like the Mill Creek Parkway or like the Spanish Valley Drive shared use path? Or is it a bike lane? Is it a buffered bike lane or a protected bike lane? So a protected bike lane is usually with bollards. A buffered bike lane is usually with painted space, sort of similar to what's on Mill Creek Drive right now. And so there's all those and more. Active transportation network recommendations and maps and matrices. So these were made by Alta. So there's maps of the city and the county showing all the places where they would like to recommend different types of facilities. So, where the shared use path's gonna go, where these sort of like longer distance connections between towns gonna go. And then, you know, down to the nitty gritty stuff, like along Main Street where we may be recommending like a new Hawk intersection, a new, sort of like, push button, crossing for pedestrians. And then lastly, what hasn't been added yet, again, GCAT is the slow one here, is, natural surface and, recreational trail proposal maps. So we're working on those, we're almost done, and those will be mailed out to you as soon as we're done. And then, the sort of last major section is the implementation toolbox. So this is mostly recommendations from Alta. They have design specs for each of the facilities that they're recommending and considerations for implementation. Road construction standards update. So I actually have a copy of that Sean has printed out for me that I'm gonna pass around. And that wasn't ready by the time, that's already around, that's great. That wasn't ready by the time we emailed you last week, but Dan Stenta actually worked on this. So Dan's now working for Forox, and Alta actually subcontracted with Forox so that Dan could have input in this, which is awesome, so we don't lose his experience. And so that is specific to the county, is basically taking our existing road construction standards and adding a new matrix that's specifically for roads that are in the active transportation network. So when something gets designated on our active transportation network map as, you know, sort of being a place where there's gonna be a shared use path, or there's gonna be a bike boulevard or something like that, a spine or a rib, as they call it, then there, like a contractor or the roads department will know to reference this section of the roads construction standards anytime they're updating that road, to know, oh, okay, now we have to change the dimensions because we wanna make sure that there's space for this new facility. So basically that is, I think, gonna go a long way toward actually getting this stuff done, is making it really clear and really easy for us to get to the implementation. And there's also some maintenance guidelines, which are important. A lot of that stuff like doesn't get thought about, you know, when it snows, how do you plow the shared use path? That kind of thing. Program and policy recommendations, this is pretty broad, you know, anything from starting a school bike bus program, you know, to a complete streets policy, all that stuff is in there. Definitely would like you all to take a look at that if you get a chance as well. Acquisition strategies, so this is sort of like a playbook for how the county should interface with private landowners. So it is both a communication strategy and also sort of gets into what are the sort of things that can be offered to landowners in exchange for easements. And that definitely is relevant to this body, because there's stuff like transfer of development rights that are recommended, and just sort of definitely worth paying attention to that. And then a list of potential funding sources that can be used to implement these recommendations. And then we've moved a lot of our process maps to the appendices, just because we don't want them taking up a lot of space at the beginning of the plan. Like we were looking at it and there were just so many maps before we got to the actual recommendations that we thought people would get confused. So a lot of the maps that just kind of show Alta's stages of analysis are in the appendix. So I'll wait for that, and I guess whatever questions, maybe, I don't know if it counts as discussion, whatever the first.
So yeah, this was just a presentation. We can't have real discussion of this item. The sharing of thoughts and concepts as we are acting as a civic body sort of gets into what they call public business, right? And so because this was not advertised as a public hearing, we're not really able to conduct public business on this yet. This was a presentation letting us know that a public hearing is forthcoming. And so I'll be working with Sean and Andrew. Do you guys have, because you know what next agenda and the agenda after that, what's your date? Do you think this gets into a public hearing?
So I guess my only comment is I looked through it over the weekend, and there are sections that are missing. And that has to be
Yeah, we can't
all
have-
completed prior to the 10-day notice for the planning commission. So we're kind of waiting on all that to be completed, and then we can start that process.
So if,
I got a question too about process.
yeah, you should ask me specifically.
So I got a question about process.
That's a covered Jerry's butt.
And that is, Katie made a comment about areas we should focus on for the review, and could you maybe go back one more and make that comment again?
Yeah, would you,
Areas-
give us like, if we had to triage in our volunteer time, Katie, 3 bullets that you need the most help with, what would they be?
Or even 5, just
Or-
150 pages.
Yes, and also if you go back to the email I sent out, you'll see this written in the email, but definitely the trail network proposals. This section right here, let's see if it allows me, nope, it doesn't let me show you that, that's fine. The trail network proposal section, which is chapter 4. The goals and strategies, which is the end of chapter 1.
Mhm.
And the road construction standards, I think that I just.
Yeah, and so guys, let's keep in mind that before the public hearing is open, if you have any correspondence or share any of your red line as you look through those strategies, you're going to need to disclose that in ex parte communications when we have that next meeting and this shows up. Well, or really the next meeting that we have on the 24th, if you're conducting any business, see, this is what happened. Now, as a public body, we are aware of our intention to set a public hearing. And so now we have to act like we already know this business is coming, right? So this isn't free form conversation anymore, right? So if we could, but in a special attention, thank you, Katie, on goals and strategies, network proposals, and most third roads,
Road
thank you,
standards.
the road. Then we will, and I was thinking about that as we were going through here, I know, Katie's under the gun to get this thing progressed. And so, if we could, don't love handing out a lot of like homework assignment for us to do on our home, like in our home office work, but if we could, really redline this one for, and when we come to that public hearing, individually have a really clear idea of what we need updated and focus a little bit less on, deliberation and a little bit more on what the solution is gonna be for this one, so we don't have to waste any of Katie's time or, punt it one other meeting cycle. Does that sound fair to everybody? Want to make sure that she's getting taken care of. Katie, was that everything for you? Did you have anything else to add before you wrap up?
I'll talk a little bit more through the sort of proposed adoption schedule.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, so one thing to keep in mind is that this is a joint adoption process with the city and county, which makes everything wonderfully complicated. And so my big deadline I have in blue right here, is that, I need to notice for City Planning Commission public hearing. I believe that's this Thursday, the 14th, it might be Friday. But I need to notice very soon, for, City Planning Commission, which means I will be posting a version of the finished plan by Friday. So all those missing pieces that Andrew was referring to will be in there by this Friday.
I would, it is not my place to direct county staff, you being one. I would recommend though, for the sake of your timeline, if it is finished enough for City Planning Commission, we're going to want to see the same version and it will be finished enough for County Planning Commission. And so you can work with Sean and Andrew to get those noticed at the same time concurrently.
Great.
Yes, so for instance, for our next planning commission meeting, which is the 24th, everything has to be complete prior to the posting on Thursday. I think is when posting is, so you'd have to have it all wrapped up for that prior to posting.
I got a nod from Gina.
It's gonna be hard, but I have to do it anyway.
Yeah, welcome to 2025.
Yeah, the last
You've
city
got some-
council meeting of the year is the 9th, that's why this.
Yeah.
Timeline is so compressed.
Understood. And that'll be the second to last, or no. Yeah, I think the 9th or 10th will do the second to last planning commission meeting.
So I have the 8th on here as a
Yeah.
proposed date for the public hearing for planning commission.
Yeah.
That, I mean, even though we have to have it noticed for the city by the 14th, I mean, that does give more time, the public more time to find out about the public hearing. I mean, we could do it earlier, but might as well
this is the main thing, and Andrew can correct me if I'm wrong, but what we'll want to make sure is that the red line, the draft that we discuss is the draft as the city planning commission saw it, and not that the city saw it, edited it, and then we got the version the city edited.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It
Yeah,
doesn't,
to come to
it's
concurrence.
concurrent is the same miles per hour, right?
Right.
And so that's the trick.
So I guess that means that if the city planning commission recommends it with red lines,
Then you can keep those red lines away from this body.
Okay.
And then we can recommend red lines, and then you can combine them both.
okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
This would be my recommendation there. Again, it's not my prerogative. You should, check with Maddie and county admin. I'm not directing staff. I'm just. This is how this process
That's
works.
correct, yeah.
yeah. Great,
Super. In that case, we will look for county planning commission on the 8th. And in the meantime, let's try and get our ducks in a row with like nice, clean red line to give to her so that we don't need to, you know how we like to do it when we've got a triple amended motion on the floor and we don't cross-eyed. Yeah, that happens. And because I know a couple other folks walked, or one other man walked in, and I think this was the last and only. Oh, sorry, we have the county commission update after that. So, sorry, I need to thank you, Marion, for putting out the agenda.
Quick question, Tom.
Yeah, Andrew.
Is that red line, are we gonna be given like a GPX file or a file that we can, when you say red line, do you want us to bring our
So
own notes?
Katie emailed out the working copy.
I got that, and we can put comments like this paper on there?
Yeah, so this is
I actually read.
But how you get a thing like this is to use the review function in Microsoft Word
Okay.
or the suggest function in Google.
And that's what
Docs.
you're looking for, is that,
If you want to go that far, I'm sure that would help Katie out the
I
most.
did actually send a comment tool.
Oh, please.
Okay.
Which is a Google Sheet, a spreadsheet. And there's a column for the page number, your comment and your name. And that way everyone can fill out the same Google Sheet
And
and
let's make a note that because that's a county executive department web tool, right? You're going to be making comments there in your capacity as a citizen and not as a county planning commissioner, because we can't use a web tool to have substantive public discussion for county commission business. We have to have that discussion in an open public hearing, not through a comment form. Sorry, Kate.
that's okay. Whatever is the most appropriate. Tony, if you wanna collate.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, this is one of those things, guys, when we volunteer on boards and we have like code amendments, sometimes you gotta bust out Microsoft Word. And I've done it before with like a little copy editing guidebook and a red pen. But like, those comments, if you want to make these amendments to the code as planning commissioner in a public hearing format during those deliberations, they need to be done as public business with the draft of what you said. Right, we're talking about fidelity to public information right now. Yeah, it's not free for all.
Okay, so using Katie's tool, we're just making those as public, as
As
citizens.
citizens, that would be a citizen's comment.
Okay, so in the spirit of not conflicting with interests, if I work for the department, what would Tony do? What, like,
If I worked for GCAP.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't comment on it.
okay. All right,
That's how I would do it. Well, if I'm working for GCAP.
Yeah.
Right? I'll give you a better example, because I work for the state. And I do a lot of land use planning for the state. I don't comment on my own land use plan. I'm the guy writing it,
mhm.
So that's.
Even
that's-
even as a public citizen,
I feel like my ability as an executive government employee to influence the text of the plan kind of supersedes my ability as a citizen to comment on it, right? And so that's one of those things that right?
Yeah.
Like, what I have as a state employee, and I'm working on a land use plan, is abnormal access to the people who sign the plan,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
And that's why it's not fair in the same way, you
sure,
know what I mean?
sure.
Because I can go up to my boss and say like, hey, Ben, I want you to write this into the thing, and he'll be like, I trust Tony, that sounds great.
Mhm,
You know, it's not the same.
okay.
It's about fairness in that way.
So I like that word.
But yeah,
you.
so let's just keep that in mind, like, if we're making comments as a citizen, use the citizens tool, but if we want to have discussion, we need to have our thoughts organized, come to the public hearing, and then discuss it in our capacity system. You good, Kate?
Great, thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. I appreciate all your hard work on
Mhm.
I await your red lines.
So go for it, Trish, or Brian, I don't know who's going first.
Okay, so these are just comments from the November 5th meeting. We had the public hearings for the freestanding signs and the water wise landscape ordinance, those opened up. There was, part of the future considerations, Commissioner Winfield proposed using $150,000 of our assured housing monies, and we also put away $100,000 last year for affordable housing. For a LIHTC project that is within the city on Mill Creek. That's a project, it's in the paper this week, 144 units. Specifically for 60 people that are within 60 to 80% of AMI, deed restricted for 55 years. They're saying that there's a lack of funding, and this is all just from the paper. Due to Trump administration cuts of $500,000. The city did postpone, they asked the city for assistance, and they did postpone that, stating that they were wanting to write a policy around the dispersal of assured housing funds. We have a housing subcommittee, which entails Commissioner Martinez, Commissioner McCurdy, and myself. So I am meeting with those two commissioners in the next couple days, hopefully to discuss what we're going to do around that. So that was just a future consideration from Commissioner Winfield. We had the updated ordinance, major utility overlay. I think it was just some verbiage correction, and that passed 5-2 with Hadeen and McGann in opposition. And we just opposed it because we opposed it the first time. So we just, it's the status quo. And the ordinance, the HDHO, again, there was some verbiage corrections. And again, that passed 5-2 with Hadeen and McGann in opposition. And then lastly, a release of a maintenance bond for the
Rama. Yeah.
Arawa subdivision, and that passed unanimously. And that's all I have.
I think that was it.
Thanks.
I know, he did the commissioner, we did an update at the commission meeting, and he did a really good job. So I'm like, I don't have to be great. Super, do it first, perfect. That's about it.
Sounds good, guys. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
One question, any update on the administrative function? So Andrew.
Planning director. An offer has been sent to an applicant and still working on details.
So a few more weeks. perhaps.
Probably less than that.
Can I ask a question about the LIHTC thing?
Yeah,
So what's the connection with the counties? So
well,
there's a
not
county
within-
LIHTC and a city LIHTC on the table. Is that correct?
No, currently, I
Only in
think just,
city.
I
Okay.
think in that city one, yeah.
Okay.
But I
okay.
think they went to the city first to ask for some kind of, I guess you call it.
Is this where the church is? Is it? is
No.
that-
No, this is by the
Right.
university.
Okay, and what's the
Yeah.
county's?
Yeah,
involvement?
right there above the nursery,
Yeah.
right?
So how does the county have to, what does the county have to do with that city
Nothing.
project?
I think
Well,
they
we have
just.
money
I
for
just-
it?
So we have a fund that we've done fee in lieu and like set aside money that's earmarked for affordable housing.
Because is that the money, sorry, is that the money that we collect from developers who are saying, we're not gonna build
Yep.
affordable housing, but we're gonna give you cash? Okay,
yep.
so we have a big pocket of money
Yep,
and what the county is considering helping the city with a LIHTC program with that money?
I think one of the commissioners proposed that, yes.
Okay,
And so, yeah, and so I have talked a little bit to Gabe, and he's looking into whether we can first, whether we can do something like that, I mean, I would assume that the city was in the same position, like unless you have a policy surrounding the dispersal of those funds,
Mhm.
it's probably not the best thing to just hand them out. And we have had, so I'm not sure, like, I think we
Yeah.
have to, I think we have a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, for
Before
sure.
and we had a great housing committee meeting recently where we kind of started talking about those funds and do you support projects? Do you support individuals? Tony was in that meeting, Aaron was in that meeting.
Okay.
You know, do you do down payment assistance? Do you help individuals buy down points, right? So I think there's a lot of different ways to go with that money. We don't have a ton of money in the city. I think only has 150. No, I don't.
They do the
I
same-
don't know how much money they have.
They do the same thing though.
Yep, they
Okay,
have some, a pocket of money
Okay.
also. Yeah,
We have we have 360,000,
the county.
kind of. Because,
Right.
well, because one of the developers that built has gone ahead and then went and built some affordable housing.
Oh,
So they might be taking some of that money back.
right.
And then there's also the 85 that would be left over from
Mhm.
100,000 that was from last year's budget.
Right.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's important for the people to know, like, what's going
Absolutely.
on with that pocket of money.
Yes, absolutely. right.
And, you know,
Right.
I'm a big proponent of ownership and,
Yes.
and, you know, like, if
Thanks.
wealthy out of town developers are gonna be using, you know, federal money already to kind of push these projects forward, maybe we should be a little bit more careful with the money that we have control over.
Yeah, and I did send out, I tried to find some kind of very simplified articles about LIHTC that I sent out to all the commissioners, just so people have a general understanding of what those programs are.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it's really complicated, but
We,
Yeah.
A lot of this, and I am the first to admit, I've been very truant in coming to the housing task force and housing some committee meetings.
can I ask when those are again?
Yeah, Eric,
For the public too?
Well,
The
that-
first Thursday of every month is the housing task force.
Okay,
And the
know.
subcommittee's just been kind of a hodgepodge, right? We're, I mean, it's just the three commissioners, and then we've kind of just tried to, like, where are we at now and who should we have come to this meeting to discuss?
okay,
Right, so the last one, we felt that it was important, we had Caitlin Myers and Ben there to really, because they, you know, they know a lot
Yep.
about, you know, obviously.
very experienced.
Where they're at, where we should be going.
First Thursday of every month, what time?
11 o'clock here.
11.
11:30.
Here.
Yeah. I think it's 11:30.
Okay,
I'm not.
And I mean, I
Um,
think one of the bigger pictures
let me
is
see.
also like, if you get a fund like that, let's say you call it a revolving loan fund, how do you replenish that fund? And,
yeah,
you know, so there's a lot of things, like Mary McGann really was quite adamant about setting aside $100,000 last year in the county budget. I will just tell you, there's no way in blankety blank that's gonna happen this year, because our budget is,
tight.
we're our budget's tight.
Yeah.
We're struggling,
Yeah.
so, but, you know, I do think, you know, it needs to become a priority, and how do we replenish that fund and where does
Yeah.
it go? And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think the public should have input in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Agreed.
Cool. Thank you, Trish.
You bet.
Moving on, we don't have any public hearings right now. Nor do we have any general business or discussion items, but before we move on to sort of like the end, future considerations and all that, I noticed one lady, ma'am, came after the original public comment. Now, normally we would do a citizen's comment at 6 o'clock, but it's looking like we may get that wrapped up before. And so I wanted to give you, do you have a comment?
No.
Super, all right. Just give you the opportunity since we're ending before 6 and new people showed up. In that case, can we hear mainly future considerations? And what I'm curious about, do we have any intended public hearings coming up for the November 24th meeting? Any subdivisions that we need to know
Well,
about?
we have
These,
those two plus,
Lavina and McCurdy.
right, plus Bates, Ken and Julia Bates on that, it's like about 3.6 acre parcel to the west of the farm that's preserved.
And so 3 rezone public hearings, Monday the 24th. That's gonna be a long one, guys. So a game there.
Rezone.
Knowing that we've got 3 rezone public hearings, do we have any discussion items that we need to have, or presentations that we need to have on that 24th meeting?
maybe not the 24th, because it sounds like that's gonna be a long one, but I would like to have maybe like a continued conversation on the MFR 45
Oh,
deal.
yeah. I can give you,
Yeah, go. for it.
the MFR 45 deal. Also, legal looked at it and, a general plan update also needs to
Yeah.
happen concurrently, and as I understand, that general plan update is getting spun up so that they can happen concurrently and.
Yeah, it's just a text amendment because they've outlined a certain density of like 18 units per acre, but obviously the 45 is gonna be great.
So, I mean, and we did have a little discussion about it at the commission meeting and, you know, I brought up that Ben Riley had stated how long that public process was with the HDHO, if you're going to that type of density. And I did have multiple commissioners say that they were willing to delay and really go through that public process. They were looking maybe at the end of 26. I'm not putting anything in stone, but I was happy to hear that hopefully if we're going to think about doing density that's far exceeded anything we've seen before, that hopefully it will encompass a lot of public process.
That's good to know.
Always.
That's what they said.
I love public process.
Yes.
I need a double.
Yeah.
Do we have, maybe just a, 5 minutes of clarity on MFR 45 and how the general plan
Yeah.
update is going on
That'd
the
be great.
24th would be
Yeah.
good.
Mhm.
Anything else?
I have I'm not out of order. It would be very, very helpful for me. On rezones to, I try to look at the future land use map. I go to the parcel and I try to figure out, now, is this in? A higher density thing, or is it mixed? It would be helpful to me when you, send out these things for the staff report to say, this would be the zone it's in, or it's next to the zone. So that I'd have some sense of that. I have some sense of it, but I'm never quite sure, and it takes me so long.
Yeah, maps are really helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so I actually did just get I was trying to see who it was I was talking to in the IT department, the GS department, who was it?
James Murphy was.
James Murphy, yeah.
Very nice.
So he actually did an overlay of that Spanish Valley future land use
Yes.
map with the parcel data.
Oh, really?
So we just got 2 days ago.
Oh, good.
So to make it a lot easier to
Yeah.
determine where you're at.
And if we don't have access to it, if you could just tell us.
Yeah, yeah.
That'd be wonderful. Yeah.
yeah, that
Print it.
app's clunky on
And-
the website. You can't use on mobile device.
Yes.
It doesn't work right.
Yes.
Is there,
It's also, of course, nice to know if it's close, because I understand we made that map and we wanted, but we know if you were right next to it, maybe that would have something to do with it too. Yeah, good.
again, I don't wanna speak for Mark Tyner, planning and zoning isn't the only department in the county that's pretty darn understaffed, right?
I do understand it. I just wondered if it was easier for them to do it than me, I'd love.
Yeah, we have it. So we just
Wonderful.
sort of got that.
Hearing no other pressing feature considerations, I would entertain a motion to adjourn, but knowing before you guys run out, Sean was kind enough, he found our cute little name tags from back in the day. And I thought it might be nice to hand these out to you guys as a memento coming on up to the holiday season. Take that home. I've got one on my desk at work that says sassy bureaucrat underneath it. You can come in and see that it's coworkers, and this will go right.
And does that mean they're never let us just go back up there?
I think this is kind of like, I'm not the worst kids. More about that than dogs.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
good memories.
It was my idea, Mary. I did not want people sitting in my chair. I'm
Anyway.
totally joking.
I will entertain a
It was
motion.
my idea.
She's
Just
like
moved
that.
by Aaron, seconded by Laura, all in favor.
Bye.
Everybody's happy.
Sit over there. I'm like covered by the TV.
I
and the
think
phone.
it was, I stole Mary McGann's congressional pen.
Oh.
Oh.
Definitely
bad.
bad.
That was a mistake.
He gets really crabby.
We may not have a single battery on me yet.
Sean, are you locking up?
Yeah,
Are you
You
locking up?
guys don't want it?
we,
So you said make sure
people
both
can
doors.
bike on our road without danger. Yes, I agree.
I just wondered if there was any little back.
Yeah.